So welcome to our third workshop, Grow and Heal. And in the last session, we explored our own energy field and we did the exercise with the torus activation, if you remember that. And we felt our own energy. So we'll pick up from there and I'm going to share my screen. So the personal field that's our own field, which we could experience, especially when we did the torus activation. So now we want to extend that awareness into other people's field, because everybody has a specific energy field, and if we become sensitive to that, then we are able to sense energy of a person even before communicating with them. So every field that we encounter creates a certain reaction. If two people meet, the first thing is that their fields meet. So when somebody, let's say, enters a room, then even before there's any exchange of words, you already feel the presence of that person. Of course, now it depends how sensitive you are. Some people have more this body awareness. Some people are more in their heads. And of course, usually we are very much in our heads. You know, as we discussed last time, left brain hemisphere is very active. And today's society is all geared towards left brain activities. So therefore, we are not really attuned so much to other people's field, even though everybody has some kind of awareness, which is mostly unconscious and intuitive. And this can be practiced. And when we practice that, it can help us greatly to communicate better or to become more empathetic and to have even deeper relationships if we understand what's going on with a person, even before that person may say something. Or we may also pick up some energy shifts. We may notice that there's no congruency between the words of a person and what they emanate. You probably all have the experience. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm fine, everything is fine," but you feel there's something going on with that person and they may not say it. And if you can pick up on it, if you feel it, then maybe you can help that person and open themselves to you. So the first thing which we feel is in our gut, this awareness. There's something, whatever the person's presence emanates. And we may also feel it in our body. It can be a tension, it can be a certain attraction, or a certain repulsion also. So our body is the first thing which reacts, and that is usually very unconscious. We are doing a little exercise now by feeling the difference between different people and what happens to you and your energy when you encounter another person. We just imagine it. And I request you to first center yourself in your body. Take a few deep breaths and feel your presence in your body, not in your head, but drop down. Breathe into your heart space and really drop down into your body. And sense that field. If you have practiced a toric activation, with a few breaths, you can feel that energy field. So when you're present in your field, now imagine somebody entering the room. Just imagine the situation. Maybe you can close your eyes, maybe it's easier. And think of a person who has a very strong presence. Think of that person entering the room and now notice what is happening to you. What is happening in your body and where does your attention go? what you will notice is that the attention immediately shifts from subject to object. And this is so automatic. We are totally unaware of that. But we are in our presence not anymore with us, but we are there with that person. Now it depends on the relationship we have with that person. Depending on that, we may feel either delighted, uplifted, or we may feel dragged down maybe. So just play with it for a moment. Think of a person like Babaji entering the room and notice what happens, how you feel. And then think of another person. Maybe a person with whom you don't feel so comfortable. Maybe there's some conflict. Would we say we're not on the same page or the vibes don't match? And now notice. And now, as you're there with your attention, now bring your attention back from object to subject. Call it back. Notice this subtle shift, what happens if you call back your energy from object to subject. Experience that for a moment. Did you notice the shift? First of all, did you notice a difference between two people entering the room? Did you notice how your attention shifted from subject to object? Shikama, yes, please.
I think it's amazing. It's such a short and easy exercise, but it's so you go to the object, you go to the other person, and then you try to come back. And this seems to be easy to practice in life. I know it's not easy, but it's really amazing.
Yeah.
So you really can shift from one to the other. And the others from the persons I like, the persons I have a good relation, or to another person, especially in that case, it helps that we can go out of this scene and then go in and decide in which way we want to go in interaction with that
Right.
person. So this is
Yes, exactly. How we want to participate, that's exactly the point here. All we are doing is about awareness. And this is the foundation of any spiritual practice. The foundation of bhakti is awareness. And this is all what we're doing here is really about awareness, the first steps. So first it was awareness about ourselves, our energy, and now we're stepping into awareness of two energy fields, how they meet. And because usually it happens unconsciously, all our energy goes out. We are dispersing our energy onto object and we don't call it back. And that's something we can always practice. By disengaging, we can sense better what's going on also with that person, because we are here, they are there, we can clearly see. We're not getting pulled into any drama, and we're going much deeper into that now. That's just the introduction, just to get a little feeling of this whole play of energies. Would anybody else like to say something before we get back?
Malati, I don't understand. Could you explain more, please? I don't understand this taking back.
First, understand the difference between subject and object. Here's the subject, we are the subject, and we are in our energy. But as soon as the senses go out to any object, this is also what we learn in Nyaya, that the senses go out to the object and then they're no more on the subject. So when I see somebody and my attention goes to that person, especially if there's any emotional bond, either like or dislike, attention goes there. So we lose our energy center. So by just drawing it back and becoming aware of I'm the subject, feeling that, then you can relate to that person differently. Don't worry if it's not yet clear. These are new concepts and we are getting into it much deeper now, and maybe it will become clearer. And in our small circles, of course, we're doing a lot of practices when we get to that topic. So this is just just to give you a little idea, but we don't want to spend too much time on that because we have a big program today. So attention goes where energy flows. That's a known saying. So where energy flows, there's our attention. So if the attention is on the person coming into the door, then our energy immediately flows there. So when we focus on a specific situation or person, there are some emotions involved, and that can cause either distress or it can cause strength. So it can be elevating emotions or it can be debilitating emotions, depending on the situation. We have to become aware where our attention goes and what frequency that is we tune into, because everything has a specific frequency. We have a frequency, every person has a frequency, and situations have frequencies. So there are certain patterns which make our energy drop, and that's what we're dealing with today. That happens, as I mentioned, unconsciously. It's not that we're making a conscious choice, but we are automatically pulled in the situation, especially if it's a strong individual, a charismatic individual, then our awareness immediately goes there and we're not even realizing it. And once our energy is there, it is difficult to withdraw it unless we do it very consciously and we have practiced that before. So these emotions are within shared fields. Every person, as I mentioned, has their own field, and as soon as they interact with each other, there is participation. And even when we are alone and we are thinking only of a situation, for example, there was an argument, and at night we're ruminating about it and we're thinking about the argument and it's still going on in the head, then we're engaging with it and we are also dropping down to that frequency. What happens often is that we get drained by these situations. We feel that our energy is sucked. And everybody has that experience that after a certain conversation or a meeting, or maybe you read something online, some social media event, and then afterwards you feel drained. You feel that your energy is just dropping. So now, where does it go? Where does your energy go, and why did it happen, and what exactly happened? So this is what we are going to look at today. So there are group energies, and these create specific energy fields. And these fields can drain our energy. They can also uplift us, but we're not so much concerned with that because that is not a problem. We want to know what we can do to avoid the leakage of our energy. When we get energized by a situation, which is of course wonderful, when we go to kirtan or we hear an inspiring lecture or anything inspiring, immediately we feel uplifted and enthusiastic and joyful and happy, and that's wonderful, and that should be like that. But that's not what we have to deal with here. We want to know what we can do to avoid that weakening of our energy field. Where is it leaking? And why are we so easily drawn into these fields? And why do we absorb the moods of others without really becoming aware of it? And this phenomena is called an energy vampire or egregore. So there's a dictionary definition what an egregore is. And there are many definitions. I've just created one of the various definitions. It's a self-sustained collective thought emotion structure. So it's created from thoughts and emotions. And this field pulls with vitality by repeated engagement with that field. And it has the ability to influence our mind and our behavior. And most people are completely unaware of that. Completely. And these structures and fields operate according to very strict set rules. And if we know the rules, then we're able to deal with them. And they form through resonant frequencies. Same emotions and same thoughts, thought over and over and over again by a certain group, creates this field, this egregoric field. And these fields, these egregores, can influence our perception, our emotion, our action. And they feed on human thought energy. Their effects are real and measurable. And that's why we feel drained. So there are two main types of egregores. They are large or collective based, and they are individual based. So the large based are big corporate cultures, companies, or political movements, religious institutions, media, any very big organization. And they have an identity which exceeds that of an individual. Let's take the example of Apple and Microsoft. So these are huge companies, and they are functioning by drawing into their fields more followers. That's the nature of an egregore, to draw followers. Now you can ask, so what is it exactly? I mean, what is Apple? It's easy to say what they're doing, but what is it? What is it? As an identity, what is it? And it is obviously more than each individual in that company, and even more than the collective of each individual. Because if each individual can be replaced by somebody else and nothing happens to the company. So even the founder of Apple was kicked out of the company, and Apple still continued. So that means the company itself is bigger than each individual and has its own identity. And it tends to create more and more splinter group. As soon as there's a specific thought which does not fit into the whole, then that creates an offspring or a splinter group. And we can see that very clearly in religious movements. For example, the church. There are so many different denominations in the church, Catholic and Protestant, and all these different sects. And each of them has an identity, and that grows, and that draws more followers. We can see it in our Gaudiya Sampradaya. We have all these different groups and parivars, and each parivar wants to increase their own followers. So there's a certain conformity within the group and a shared identity. And the reward for being in that group is security, a sense of belonging there, and whatever the group offers. And as long as the individual is in the group, it is being nurtured by the group. And if it leaves the group, then then the energy is being drained. It is clearer if you look at the individual egregores, and that's more important for us because that is what we are dealing with every day without really noticing it. And this can happen in a family, in a relationship, in an ashram. There are certain expectations in an ashram, certain unspoken rules which one should follow. In relationships, there could be codependency or there are drama cycles. All these are egregores. In a workplace, there can be also hierarchies, unwritten rules, or in friend groups, there's gossip. So all these are egregores which are creating conflict. And how do they do that? They attack your weakest spot. And the closer they are, the more difficult it is to notice them, to see them. So they get their energy from you engaging with them. That's how they draw energy. So as soon as you get into an argument, let's say in a relationship, it starts very innocently. Somebody just saying a word and there's a misunderstanding and immediately you react to that. And by reacting to that, you're already starting to get sucked into that. And then the other person reacts more, so it escalates from one to the other, and suddenly you find yourself in a big argument without really understanding how it happened. And you are drained and drained and drained. And this happens in all these structures. Energy leaking, energy draining is exactly what these egregores are doing. And they are feeding on your participation. As soon as you participate in it, in that specific frequency, then you're hooked and you're sucked and then you're leaking energy. So these patterns and the egregore patterns they're not conscious entities, but they work in a very, very structured way with a set of rules, and they only persist by sustained participation in whatever's going on, whatever has initiated the provocation or the conflict. And they draw your vitality as soon as you emotionally engage. That's the main thing. Because your attention goes there, it's emotionally charged, and then energy flows from you into that egregore. So the egregore is being fed by the emotion and the attention you give it. And very often these individual-based egregores start with a provocation. And as soon as you buy into it, as soon as you accept that invitation and react on the same frequency, then your own frequency drops. And usually it's a lower frequency, and then as it drops, your energy is being drained. And they work by the way of the least resistance. So that means wherever is your weak spot, wherever you are most likely to be emotionally hooked, that's exactly where you are attacked. For example, if you are financially stable, so any financial issue will not bother you much. If you have invested your money somewhere and then your stock drops or you lose something, it doesn't bother you much. But if your weak spot is your health and you get a diagnosis, that you have a serious disease, then immediately you get hooked to it, and then you emotionally react with fear or with sadness or with anger, whatever emotion is exactly the resonant frequency of that. So that's where you get hooked, and that's where you're drained. So the feeding loop of these egregores is, first, there is division. Every egregore tries to create division, so we have all these different groups, like Microsoft and Apple, or all these different religious groups. So whenever there's division, then there's conflict. And usually it starts either with creating a conflict or creating fear about something. And when that happens, your identity is hooked because you identify with that. You identify with the specific, let's say, Microsoft and Apple. You work at Apple and you identify as an Apple worker, and then there comes a Microsoft person, and because your identity is so strong, so there's a conflict. It could be anything. It could be Gaudiamat and ISKCON, or whatever it is. So as soon as your identity is hooked there, you will argue from that side, and then you are on the same frequency and you engage in the conflict. You're emotionally hooked, and the egregore harvests your energy. So that is the cycle. You engage, you react, and you defend, and then the cycle repeats and repeats as long as you have no more energy left. And when you're completely drained, then the egregore leaves you. And the signatures of these egregores, they are very predictable. It is usually this division, so us versus them. So we are here, and you defend your identity because you so strongly identify with whatever it is, your religion or your workplace, or the place you come from, your town. So you identify with that, and then it's us versus them. It could be also sports, like in India, the cricket players, India against Pakistan, very big egregores. And also the us, that identity, there is a feeling of moral superiority. No, we are better. We are the better players. We are the better company. We are the better devotees. We are this superiority. And then there's also a certain righteousness, because we are better and we have the right to infringe on your whatever. We take the right, and the other side does the same. So there's also a feeling of fear. Fear is a big hook because it drops energy very low. And every time we engage in these egregores, that means by arguing or by defending our position, by attacking the other party, when that happens, then our energy is drained. So now let us do a little exercise again, an energy audit.
When you spoke about the egregores, you also were saying that it's also known as energy vampire. So that name or that word I have heard before.
Yeah.
And I usually related it to, or how I heard how it was used is with related to certain people.
Yes.
Exactly. Now it sounds more like a conscious field, which is kind of, or even actively kind of doing something. So could you say something on that?
Yeah. Your notion of energy vampire is a general one, that there are people who drain our energy, and everybody has that experience. With certain people, we feel immediately drained, and there are other people who uplift us. So our first exercise, if you imagine a person who's draining your energy, you can really feel the pull. So that is definitely there. That is one kind of energy vampire, but that is something which is common and which everybody knows. People, depending on how sensitive you are, but most people are aware that there are some people around them who are not so, let's say, uplifting.
Yes, we can feel sometimes there's someone who, okay, or
Yeah,
after
who just
conversation, and
sucks.
then
Yeah,
yes, I
exactly,
think most of
exactly.
us
And then,
have
of course, we
experienced.
want to protect ourselves. So for that, that toric activation is extremely helpful. If we are in our energy, our toric field, if that's activated, nobody can suck.
Mhm.
So that is ideal for this kind of energy vampires. And these egregores is something more subtle. So that's why we spend more time on that, because usually people are not aware of that. And it can go on for days, for weeks, and for months. We may get sucked by some egregores for months, and we don't understand. And we'll get to ways how we can disengage and how we can even get back our energy. These are the more advanced techniques, but once we understand egregores, once we're able to spot them, once we're able to understand their frequency, we can play with them. We can protect ourselves, and we can get our energy back. And that's the focus here on of this workshop.
So would you say then that an egregore is usually more like a field, but not necessarily a person?
Yes. Yeah, it's not a person, it's a thought field. When people, groups, big or small, think in resonant frequencies, the same thoughts and the same emotions, they resonate and then create a field. And that's, so a small group creates a small field, but they are more on an individual level. So you engage with them more. If it's in your family, can be even one person. It can be also within. That's also an egregore. So there's a fluid distinction between energy vampire and egregore. It can be both actually,
Yeah,
but
that's why I was thinking that it sounded like an egregore can also be with one person,
yes,
which we have kind of, let's say, a pattern kind
right.
of, or a usual conversation, or we fall
Yes.
into. So then this creates then from my side also, right? Because we are then both in this, probably then we create together this field.
Absolutely,
If we are two
absolutely.
people in
Yeah.
it.
And while usually we only understand, okay, I don't feel good with this person, I try to avoid the person, there are more elegant ways how to deal with it, much better ways. And that's what we're going to do here.
Okay,
But
thank
but
you.
it's both. But so, yeah, it can be, an individual can be an egregore and can be also energy vampire. Okay,
Okay,
Shikama?
We speak about the negative part. Egregore are also used for the positive part, because if I'm in the circle of the devotees, it's also uplifting.
Yes.
It's vampire.
Yeah. Exactly. So these are not energy vampires. These are the fields which enliven us, and that of course we should look for that. That's the association we want. But unfortunately we can't always have it. I mean, we want to have as much as possible uplifting association, but we do get into situations where that's not possible. We have to deal with the outside world also, and we deal with it. I mean, all the time we are dealing with these egregores, even engaging with social media, just opening our computer or reading something, and just these thoughts patterns. Even we don't see a person, but the thought patterns are there, they're everywhere, and that's already engaging.
So the word egregore is neutral, or is it the negative?
It
It's
is
neutral.
neutral, but it's usually only used in a negative sense. But yeah. Some words take on that meaning even though it is neutral, but you don't hear much about the positive ones.
Is this mostly individually based, like in the beginning you were saying, and does it have anything to do with ethnicity, or this is general for everything, basically?
Yes, it has nothing to do with ethnicity, but that can be a big egregore, of course. That ethnicity can be very big egregore, but it has nothing to do with that. They're everywhere, independent of that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so let us do that little exercise, an energy audit. So I would like you to think of a situation recently that triggered your anger or irritation. And that triggers, of course, the hook. So in that situation, try to find the provocation. What was the initial provocation, which is the hook of the egregore? Think about that for a moment. And now think how you reacted at that time. What happened? Were there any beliefs or positions or identities that you defended? And how did you feel energetically after you engaged in that situation? Did you notice any inner loops, any recurring thoughts? So this is just to give you an idea what happens. This energy audit is something you can do regularly just to see what triggered and what exactly happened and how you reacted. So now let's look how we react. What is the cost of feeding these egregores? So basically, they cost our energy and our freedom. So they drain our time, our emotion, our attention, and obviously our energy. And you feel exhausted afterwards. You feel tired. And you sacrifice your emotional well-being, your vitality. And now there is a way out because you have the choice to notice the pattern and thus create a gap. And that is the awareness. If you are able to see the hook before you get caught, before you get pulled into it, and then you can transform your automatic reactions into a conscious choice. That means you can decide if you want to engage or not. You can consciously engage if that's good, if there's an argument. You may want to exert power, you may want to be a little bit firm. As long as you do that consciously, there's absolutely no problem and there's no energy being pulled. The problem is only when that happens unconsciously, unaware, and that's when we are sleeping awake. And that's when the egregore catches you. In moments when you are sleeping awake, when you are not aware, suddenly the provocation comes out of nothing. And because you're not aware, you immediately react. And then it starts to escalate. So again, these egregores are not abstract concepts. They are felt in the body as a contraction, heaviness, pressure. And awareness cuts that loop. So with awareness, we can make a conscious choice. We can create a space between the event and the action. And by witnessing what happens, we automatically stay within our own power. We don't give it away. We stay on subject. And we transform our automatic reaction into a conscious decision. And so we can feel the urge, whatever it is, if it's anger or if it's grief or whatever, but we don't have to follow it. We can choose. So this is the basic defense mechanism, disengagement. As soon as our participation becomes conscious, then we are not compulsively feeding the egregore anymore. And we are no longer asleep inside the pattern. We can step back and observe. So the first thing is we observe the game. We understand, aha, this is an egregore. And everybody has their own egregores. When I started observing my egregores, it became so amazing. understanding, oh, these are my egregores, and how they repeatedly try to get my weakest spot, and they usually attack 3 times. And then if you're able to withdraw and not to get pulled into it, then they just loosen the grip. So you withdraw your energy, you release identity. You don't identify with exactly that, whatever wants to argue. That's very important, because if you're fully identified with a specific, upadi, whatever it is, then you're already bound to be hooked. You maintain your sovereignty with it, and the provocation can just swing out. You just let it swing out without participating. So you maintain your integrity and your awareness. And that happens, of course, if your field is coherent. Then you can willfully engage with these energies. And a coherent field is there when you have your toric field, when you have activated it, and you're aligned, you're centered, grounded, then your field is strong, and then the chance of getting pulled is much less. And then you're able to notice the pattern of a field without immediately merging with it and exchanging energy. You stay centered and grounded, and you're able to maintain your own frequency and internal state and not drop down to the frequency of the egregore, which is always lower, which always tries to pull you down. Yes? You have a question?
Yes. My question is, we mentioned earlier, when you're sleeping and you get this egregore attacking you, you don't have the time for your tutorial field and all of that. You kind of, it's in a subliminal level where it's attacking you.
Yes.
How do you deal with those type of, because that's what gets you, because then you start going with that.
Yeah.
You maybe recognize it as an egregore, but you're already in it. Because
Yeah.
the time, even if you're aware, it's that split of a second.
Yeah.
It's quite
Yeah.
instant reaction. So
Exactly.
is that okay? I can understand in a day where you can practice and kind of block, make your tutorial feel strong. But what happens in that state where these things come as thought, whether it's what happened at the office or what happened and what people said, and you are like in a full engagement.
Yeah.
So that's just a question. How do you deal with that type of situation?
This is really a matter of practice, and you can practice it. The first step is to know about it, because if you have no idea what's going on, we're just helplessly sucked in, and we lose our energy. As soon as we know about egregores and we are aware of them, then when a provocation is coming, then immediately it's like, okay, I can send myself a signal like hangman's noose. Okay, I'm now being pulled. Or this is one of my teachers, he's Peter Sage, he speaks about hangman's noose. And then that, as soon as that is dropped, okay, I pull out of it. So you can just remind yourself, you can just, when you are engaging with whatever social situations, just think of, okay, egregore. As soon as you notice somebody is, so when you are hooked, so what happens is it's not just mental, it's biochemical, and it can be measured by your bodily reaction. Your cortisol is flooding, stress hormones, your nervous system, you're in the fight or flight mode. Your adrenaline is high in the body. Your heart is racing, muscles are tense. Your throat may be blocked. And you may not even be able to sleep because it's constantly, the loop is running, thinking about the situation. You lose your focus, can't concentrate, and you have obsessive thoughts, can't stop thinking about it. So there are signs that you're hooked, bodily signs, physical tension, as we just mentioned, and mental, these thoughts, worst case scenarios, and then also justification. when you're hooked by an egregore, you have to justify that you are doing the right thing. So this is always this us versus them. This is always the division which egregores create. Because you identify with it, you have to think that I'm right, I'm on the right side, otherwise you wouldn't engage. As soon as you think the other is right, then there's no point of arguing or anything. As soon as somebody attacks you, oh, you did this to me, you're a fool. And if you agree, if you yes, I'm a fool, it's over. There's no more argument. But as soon as you hit back, that's the problem. As soon as you hit back, it's like a wrecking ball. It pushes back even harder. And this is what we learned in the first workshop about the balance and harmony. Because when there's a strong push, the first provocation is a push. And then usually you push back harder. You are provoked by somebody, you give it back to them. So you push back harder, so the pendulum swings to one side, you're out of balance. And as soon as you're out of balance, then the natural tendency is, it has to swing back into balance. You will get a pushback. And that's the escalation trap. And then it gets fueled and there's the fight or whatever. It escalates more and more and more, and then it's extremely hard to escape at that point. It's like a whirlpool. When you're in the middle of it, you're just sucked down and it's almost impossible to get out of it at that time. So before it gets to that point, you have to get out. And one thing is about these egregores, you can never win. It's not possible. To win an argument with an egregore, it's impossible. So the only way is to reclaim your energy is you disengage, and that's the more advanced strategy, you collapse the frequency itself. So how to do that? So every egregore operates on a specific emotional frequency, which can be fear, anger, panic, shame, humiliation, grief. These are very low frequencies on the consciousness map. These are all way below 200, very low energies. And every frequency can be collapsed with a dissonant frequency. So there are constructive and destructive patterns. You can imagine it if you are throwing a stone into a lake, it creates ripples. So if you throw a few stones exactly at the same place, in the same center of the first one, then they're concentric ripples, harmonious waves, which amplify each other. So there will be a big circle, which is being amplified by each stone, which is being thrown into the same circle. So these are the constructive patterns, which means these are matching frequencies. And that means feeding the egregore with the same frequency. And now a destructive pattern is when you throw a pebble in one place and then you throw a pebble next to it. So there will be two circles, different ripples, which interfere with each other. So they don't magnify each other, but they interfere with each other. And that is a destructive pattern. And that is the dissonant frequency which collapses that frequency of the egregore. And that's exactly what we have to do. So the 3-step collapse process is the first thing when you encounter the egregore is you identify which frequency it is. So when you get into any situation, before you get sucked in, you think, okay, egregore, now identify, what is it? Is it fear? What do you feel when you engage with the egregore? What is your first feeling? Is it shame? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it grief? Whatever happens, any situation, you can immediately identify what it is, what happens to you emotionally. And then you have to consciously choose the opposite frequency. And that is, of course, that's really advanced. It's not easy. If you're able to broadcast that authentically and really feel it, then you are able to collapse the egregore, and even you suck the energy back into yourself. You can immediately feel it, actually, physically. You get more energy. So, for example, here we have some examples of dissonant frequencies. So if there's any situation which causes fear, a dissonant frequency would be humor. Any situation where you get a message which causes fear, let's say something happened to a person dear to you. So anger and gratitude, panic and calm, shame, guilt, self-acceptance, humiliation, empowerment or dignity, and jealousy, admiration. As devotees, we always hear about jealousy. That's a very, very prominent topic in devotee circles. And then we feel admiration for that person. You admire that person, you wish the best for that person. So it's immediately a dissonant frequency from what you feel in the first place. And by emanating that out, then the situation will rearrange itself so that person will react differently. So, for example, you are working in a group, maybe have seva together, in a group, and you're already working on it, and suddenly you're being removed from that for some reason you don't understand, and you can feel, oh my God, I've been rejected. Or maybe the guru even decided and rejected me, and this is not fair, and you feel shame, anger, contraction. And then, the outcome is rumination, you lose your confidence, and it's a cycle. So instead of experiencing it that way, you can also experience it as a secret passageway. Like, wow, so that means something else is going to happen now. This is so exciting. And there's something which is waiting for me, which is much better than that. Then you're curious, you're open to something new, and you broadcast that, and that is your reality. It will align. Reality will align with that. So the ideal way to deal with it for devotees is the peace formula, the famous peace formula in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yakatapasam Savaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Savabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richtati. Knowing me, the recipient of all sacrifices and penances, the master of all abodes, and the well-wisher of all beings, one attains peace. So if we take it as divine grace, by him, if you remember the 4 stages of awareness or consciousness, the 4th one, the most elevated one, was by him. Whatever happens to us, it's Krishna's mercy. Accept it as this is so that I can progress in my spiritual life, I can learn. And if we are able to accept it, then any situation, any provocation, any egregore, with that view, can no more suck us. There's no more drainage. And then the drain stops. We get our energy back. We are back on subject, and we feel peaceful, we feel grounded, and we are no longer the battery for the egregore. Okay, so that was it. It's a much to digest, and as I mentioned, in our small circles, we will practice this, of course, many more situations, but that will be only in the next pillar. Shikama.
I have one question. If someone is in fear or panic, it's difficult to just change.
Yes.
Is it also a possibility, if we think it's from the point of view of feeling, that we change the how I can say it? I have fear because there is a wild animal. But I go in the house and I put my focus on another thing to say, okay, I'm here, secure. Is it also a possibility? You know what I mean?
Yes,
Just change the focus.
Yes,
to
that's
get another feeling.
Yeah, that is also lowering the importance. If you remember, we did that also. That's all part of it. Lowering importance and stepping back, observing, that helps us to disengage. That is a very advanced strategy to find a dissonant frequency. And that's not easy. That's definitely not easy. But the first thing is awareness and observation. So if you step out of it and do something else, because you already are aware of it, okay, egregore, I can't deal with it right now. So just let it be there. I'm doing something else. I'm shifting my attention to something else. Then naturally, because you're lowering the importance, it will swing out slowly. As long as you don't get drawn into it again, you have the choice to let it swing out. So at least your energy is not drawn. But if you want to play with it, if you want to get one step further, you can really hunt the egregores and suck their energy by doing that frequency thing. But that's a little bit...
So with this change of focus, I could change the feeling, and then I'm a step back, and then I could go to the situation again to think clearly about, or
yes,
to...
yes,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. Because then you are able to think about it, because you have, you're not reacting automatically, but you're able to consciously engage as you like. Yeah.
I wanted to clarify something you said at the beginning. This concept of egregore, does it suggest that the thoughts and emotion, when they are shared by a group, more than one, they take a sort of independent structure on their own?
Yes.
And to navigate in the field, one must have some awareness, but the field has nothing to do with the person involved. Is that was something? Did you say something like that? But the egregore is independent.
The egregore is independent, but it's created by thought energy and by emotions. But it has a life on its own. It's like an autonomous entity. But it's, of course, not an individual entity. It's like a law of nature, like gravity. Gravity works. It doesn't look at the person and say, okay, here, this person, I like this person, so let's spare him from falling down the rock if he's standing on the top. No, it works on everybody the same way. So on egregores also work on everybody the same way, like mosquitoes. When you get into, go out without mosquito repellent, then you're getting bitten by mosquitoes. They don't care. So that's how they work. And if you understand how they work, then you can protect yourself.
Yeah, like law of gravity, it does make sense. It's something, it's a bit mysterious, but it is independent.
Yes, yeah, it is.
Thank you.
That's why it's so good to understand the workings of energies, because then we are more alert and we are more autonomous in our dealings with others and with the situations. Malika had one more question.
Yes, sorry, I was not sure if you had to continue something first, because the question is not so extremely directly related, but you explained, but you answered to the question, or you said about the energy vampires, that the protection is the Taurus shield, Taurus energy shield. So I think some time ago, when you gave the in-person live sessions, you were explaining about imagining like an egg or a round bowl around us.
Yeah.
So is this Taurus shield let's say the precise explanation of this, what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's the egg. Yeah, that was a simplified, but that's exactly, it's called Taurus field, that egg, the energy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you all very much.